Today we're going to try to solve systems based on the elimination method. What that means is I want to be able to add two equations together and eliminate one of the variables. We're going to start off pretty easy to where you simply just have to add them and it does eliminate for you. So if I look at this first set here, if I were to add each of these together, so combine my like terms, what would get canceled?
The x.
Yeah, the x. 4x minus 4x cancels. That leaves me with 10y equals 20 minus 30 is negative 10. So now I just need to solve for y.
So is this like the easier method?
Depends. It all depends how all these questions are set up. If you have a question set up like this, you would definitely not use substitution. You would use elimination because it's already ready to go.
So depending on the equation, it depends on
Which method you probably want to do.
Okay.
So I get y equals negative 1. That gives me one of the variables, y. How do I find x?
You plug in y.
Plug it into y. So let's see, I have 4x plus, it doesn't matter which one you plug it into, I'm just going to pick the first one. 8 times y, so in this case 8 times negative 1, equals 20, and I need to solve for x. So that's 4x minus 8 equals 20. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. 4x equals 28. And then divide by 4, x equals 7.
Okay. Yeah.
X equals 7. So my solution is 7, negative 1. I'll just write it up here. 7 and negative 1. That's my values for x and y that I can plug into each of these equations and they'll come out true. So let me give you a minute and use this same strategy on this next set of equations. So let's look at these two equations and add them together. Which variable gets canceled?
The 6. The x.
Yeah, the x. So negative 6x plus 6 will cancel. Add in 5y and 4y gives me 9y equals 1 minus 10 is negative 9. One last step to divide by 9 so that we can solve for y, and y again equals negative 1. So I found my value for y. To find x, again, let's plug in y into any of these equations. Negative 6x plus 5 times y. And in this case, y is now going to be negative 1 equals 1. That gives me negative 6x minus 5 equals 1.
Now you move your line to the other side.
And then now add 5 to both sides. 6x equals 6. And then now divide by negative 6. X equals negative 1. So my solution will be negative 1 and negative 1 for my x and my y. Hopefully that's what you got.
Yes.
Because these are easy. We're going to complicate it a little bit,
Oh, no.
slowly as we go. Notice these are already set up. If I add them like they are, it automatically gets rid of one of the variables. But in this K-level class, they're not going to be set up for you just like that nice. You're going to have to make some adjustments. Let's look at the first set here. 8x plus y equals negative 16. Negative 3x plus y equals negative 5. If I add these together like they are, nothing gets canceled. But there is a change I can make that will cancel one of the variables. What do you think that change would be?
Switch the bottom one to negative.
Yes.
Switch the top one to negative.
So one of these, I need to flip the signs, because if I get a negative y and add them together, it'll cancel, right? Now you can't just change the sign of
One thing.
one
You gotta
thing.
change
You
it.
have to multiply the entire thing by the negative 1. So let's distribute. Negative 1 times 8x is a negative 8x. There we go. The negative 1 times y gives me what I'm looking for, a negative y value. Negative y equals, and then last but not least, I also have to multiply it to the number on the other side of the equals. That's going to give me a plus 16. So everything must be changed within that equation. Now when I focus on these two, and add them together, what gets canceled?
The Y's.
The y's. So that's going to give me a negative 11x equals 11. Last but not least, divide by a negative 11, and for whatever reason I can't get rid of a negative 1 as one of my answers. So x equals negative 1.
You're on Thanksgiving holiday.
Now we have the x value. To find the y value, I just need to
Plug it in.
plug it in.
He gets
So,
a D1 offer.
8 times x, so 8 times negative 1 plus y equals negative 16. Let's solve for y. So that's a negative 8 plus y equals negative 16. Add 8 to both sides. Y equals negative 8. So hopefully not too much of a difficulty problem for you. Had to multiply one of my equations by negative 1. I could have picked this one as well, but to line things up, I picked the top one. Didn't matter which one you changed. Just as long as you get two variables that have different corresponding signs so that when you add them together, they'll equal a 0. So next, go ahead and let me give you a second to solve this problem. 7x plus 2y equals 24. 8x plus 2y equals 30. First things first. What should I multiply to make it to where I can use my elimination method?
The top one by negative.
Top one or the bottom one, but I'm going to go ahead and multiply the top one by a negative 1. That's going to give me a negative 7x minus 2y equals negative 24. And if you're still wondering why I did that, that's because when I add these two equations together, what happens?
Tangent. That cross out.
Yeah, the y's will cancel, and I'm just left with x. So 8x minus 7x is x equals 6. Well, that wasn't too bad. Very quickly, I got my first variable. Now let's plug it back in to get the y value. So 7x,
You went crazy?
7 times 6 plus 2y equals 24. 6 times 7 is 42. 42 plus 12y equals 24. Let me subtract 42 on both sides here so that I can isolate my variable. 2y equals negative 18. And then divide by 2, y equals negative 9. So my solution set should be 6 and negative 9. Just like that. Which means, if I were to graph these two lines on a graph, they would intersect at the point 6 and negative 9.
Look at these old pictures of me, so I can
Now, again, let's increase the difficulty. It's not going to be as easy as just multiplying by a negative. There's some strategy involved. Let's look at this set. Negative 4x plus 9y equals 9, and x minus 3y equals negative 6.
Multiply the bottom by 3.
You'll see with these, there's no there's no one answer. I could multiply the bottom by 3. That's going to give me a 3x and a negative 9y. It'll cancel, right? Maybe we'll do that. I could also multiply the bottom by 4. That'll give me a 4x, which will cancel with the x. So either way will work. Since I already have 4 here, I'll go ahead and multiply by 4. That's going to give me a 4x distributed to the negative 3y. It's going to give me a negative 12y. And then distributing that to the negative 6 gives me a negative 24. So that now I want to add these two equations together. That's going to cancel my x. here and here. 9y minus 12y is a negative 3y. And then 9 minus 24 is negative 15. And now divide by a negative 3 on both sides. Y equals 5. There's my y value. Let's plug it in to find our x value. I'm going to plug it into the second one here, which looks a little bit easier to do because I just have an x variable. Minus 3 times y, so minus 3 times 5 equals negative 6. X minus 15 equals negative 6. Add 15 on both sides, x equals 9. Add x equals 9. So x equals 9 and y equals 5. Let's just find out what would be a good strategy for the rest of these problems. So, what would you multiply so that you can cancel out a variable and use our elimination
Top
method?
one by negative 3.
So notice if I only multiply the top by a 3, that's not enough. That's going to give me a 3y plus 3y. So I need to put a negative out in front. That way it becomes a negative 3y. All right. Let's look at the next set of problems. A little bit more difficult. 5x plus 4y equals negative 30. 3x minus 9y equals negative 18. What would be a good strategy here? Sometimes you may not just have to multiply just one equation. Sometimes you may have to multiply another to two equations. Both of them.
So multiply the top one by negative 3 and multiply the bottom one by 5.
So let's see, if I multiply this top by a negative 3, that's going to give me a negative 15x. And multiply this bottom by a positive 5, that's going to give me a positive 15x, which will cancel, yes. Very good. I could also multiply what? So that would cancel out my x. What do I multiply on both sides to cancel out the y?
The top one by negative 4 and the bottom by...
No.
Yeah.
Top one by 9 and bottom one by 4.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Ah, very good.
No problem.
So notice we're kind of crisscrossing here. If I have a 9, I'm going to multiply the other equation by 9. If I have a 4 here, multiply the other one by that 4. Our signs are already flipped, so it'll turn out. That would be a good strategy to use. What about this next one? 3x minus 2y equals 2 and 5x minus 5y equals 10. If I want to eliminate my x variable, what do I need to multiply both the equations to? So I'm trying to get rid of the x.
Negative 5 and 3.
3. Or this could have been a positive 5 and a negative 3. Let me, actually I'm going to do this. Now let's get rid of the y variable. What if I want to get rid of that y first? What do I multiply the top and the bottom by?
The top
Negative
one
5
negative
and
5.
a positive 2.
Okay, negative 5 and a positive 2. So notice they're the same sign, so one of these has to be a negative. Or this could be a positive 5 and a negative 2. So yeah, this will cancel my x, or should I say eliminate x. And this one is set up to eliminate the y. Doesn't matter which one you do, both strategies are fine. Now, if you have a problem that's this complicated with the double multiplication, double distributing to elimination, I would just skip elimination altogether and not substitute. What's easier than that?
Graphic.
Graph it.
Oh my God.
So let me graph these two equations like so. And what's the solution? Negative 6, 0. Yeah. Negative 6, 0. Now normally I know you'll probably mostly graph, but if they're set up like this, it may be quicker just to go ahead and do elimination than it is to type in these equations and hit graph, especially on the graphing calculator. On Desmos, probably that's the quickest method. But if you just have a calculator, you'll have to set these equal to y and then put them in the calculator, and then graph, and then find the intersection. Might as well just do elimination.